The last words my brother said to me were, "I can't do this anymore, Sarah. I'm done." Then he walked out of the coffee shop, and I haven't heard his voice since. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of silence from the person who used to be my best friend. 3 years of unanswered texts and voicemails that go straight to a full inbox. 3 years of wondering what I did that was so terrible that my own brother erased me from his life. I replay that conversation over and over in my mind, searching for the moment it all went wrong. What did I say? What didn't I say? How did we go from being inseparable as children to complete strangers? And the hardest question of all, why didn't I fight harder to keep him? They say you don't know what you have until it's gone. But I knew what I had. I had a brother who knew me better than anyone. Who shared my childhood, my memories, my family history. Who was supposed to be there for the rest of my life. I just didn't realize how easy it was to lose him. How 1,000 small cuts could sever a bond one thought was unbreakable. And now I'm left with silence, regret, and the desperate hope that it's not too late to find my way back to him. My name is Sarah. I'm 36 years old. My brother Marcus is 2 years younger than me, which means for 2 whole years of my life, I was an only child. Then he came along, and everything changed. My mother tells me I was obsessed with him from the moment they brought him home from the hospital. I wanted to hold him constantly. I would bring him my toys. I called him my baby. As we grew up, we were close in the way that siblings who genuinely like each other are close. We played together. We invented elaborate games and built forts and spent hours in our backyard creating entire worlds. When I started school and he was still home, I would rush back every day to tell him everything I'd learned. When he finally started school himself, I walked him to his classroom every morning. We were a team. That's how it felt. Sarah and Marcus. Marcus and Sarah. Our parents would joke that we had our own language, our own private world. And in many ways, we did. Our childhood wasn't perfect. Our parents fought sometimes. Money was tight. Dad worked long hours and Mom struggled with depression, though I didn't understand that's what it was until I was much older. But Marcus and I had each other. When things got tense downstairs, we'd retreat to one of our rooms and play quietly, creating our own peace in the chaos. I was protective of him. When kids picked on him in elementary school for being small and quiet, I stepped in. When he struggled with reading in 2nd grade, I helped him practice every night. When our parents' marriage finally fell apart and they divorced when I was 14 and he was 12, I tried to shield him from the worst of it. Maybe that's where things started to go wrong. Maybe I never stopped seeing him as my little brother who needed protecting. Maybe I never let him grow up in my eyes. The teenage years were harder. I was busy with my own life, friends, school, eventually boyfriends. Marcus became more withdrawn. He spent a lot of time alone in his room, drawing and listening to music. I told myself it was normal teenage behavior. I was pulling away from our parents too, creating my own identity. It made sense that he would do the same. But I also remember feeling annoyed with him sometimes. He was so quiet, so sensitive. I was becoming more social, more confident, and he seemed to be going in the opposite direction. When I'd invite him to hang out with me and my friends, he'd usually say no. When I'd try to talk to him about his life, he'd give me one-word answers. Why are you so weird? I asked him once when I was 17 and he was 15. We were in the car, and I'd just invited him to a party that he'd declined. Why can't you just be normal and try to make friends? The look on his face. I can still see it. Hurt. Betrayed. Like I'd slapped him. He didn't answer. He just turned and looked out the window for the rest of the drive. I apologized later, but the damage was done. I'd called my little brother, my best friend, weird. I'd suggested there was something wrong with him for being introverted, for being different from me. I wish I could say that was the only time I hurt him. But it wasn't. When I went away to college, I promised I'd call him all the time. I did at first. But then I got busy. I made new friends. I fell in love for the first time. Weeks would go by between calls. When I did call home, I'd talk to Mom and ask her to tell Marcus hi, rather than actually talking to him myself. He started college 2 years after me. He went to a school close to home while I was states away. He studied art, which our father thought was impractical. I remember Dad complaining about it during one of my visits home. Art? What's he going to do with an art degree? I told him to study something useful, but he won't listen. I should have defended Marcus. I should have told Dad that Marcus was talented, that his art mattered, that not everyone needs to follow the same path. But I didn't. I just shrugged and said, yeah, I don't know what he's thinking. Marcus was sitting right there. He heard me. He got up and left the room without a word. After college, I got a good job in marketing. I moved to a different city, rented a nice apartment, started building my career. I was busy, ambitious, focused on climbing the corporate ladder. I'd come home for holidays, but my visits were short. I was always checking my phone, always distracted, always eager to get back to my real life. Marcus graduated and struggled to find work in his field. He took a job at a coffee shop while he tried to sell his artwork and build a portfolio. I remember thinking he was wasting his potential, drifting without direction. I didn't say it out loud, but I'm sure he could feel my judgment. When I got engaged to Derek, I asked Marcus to be part of the wedding party. He said yes, but he seemed uncomfortable about it. At the wedding, he gave a toast that was short and awkward. Derek's brother had given this eloquent, funny speech, and then Marcus got up and stammered through 3 sentences before sitting back down. I was embarrassed. I didn't say anything to him directly, but he must have seen it on my face. The marriage to Derek lasted 4 years. It fell apart slowly, then all at once. He cheated. I was devastated. When I called Marcus to tell him about the divorce, he was sympathetic but distant. The closeness we'd had as children felt like a lifetime ago. After my divorce, I moved back closer to home. Not to the same town, but the same state. I told myself I wanted to be near family, but really I was lonely and lost and trying to figure out who I was outside of being Derek's wife. I started reaching out to Marcus more. Suggesting we get together for dinner or coffee. Sometimes he'd agree, but often he'd make excuses. He was busy. He had plans. Maybe another time. When we did see each other, conversations felt strained. Like we were acquaintances making small talk rather than siblings who'd once shared everything. I'd ask about his life and get vague answers. He'd ask about mine and I'd talk too much, filling the silence with stories about my job and my post-divorce dating life and my friends he'd never met. I didn't realize how one-sided our relationship had become. I didn't see that I only called when I needed something, advice, support, someone to vent to. I didn't notice that I rarely asked deep questions about his life or actually listened when he did share. The tension came to a head around the time Marcus got serious with his girlfriend, Amy. He'd been dating her for about 6 months when he finally introduced her to the family at Mom's birthday dinner. Amy was nice. Quiet, artistic like Marcus, a little awkward in social situations. After dinner, Mom pulled me aside and asked what I thought of Amy. "She seems nice," I said. "A little shy. I hope she's good for Marcus. He needs someone who'll push him to be more ambitious, you know? Help him get his life together." "Sarah," Mom said carefully. "Marcus's life is together. He's happy. He's making a living with his art now. He has his own studio space. He's doing well." I was surprised. I didn't know any of that. When had that happened? Why hadn't he told me? But instead of recognizing that I'd been disconnected from my brother's life, I felt defensive. "Well, he doesn't talk to me about things," I said. "He keeps everything to himself." Mom gave me a look I couldn't quite read. "Does he? Or do you not ask?" Her words stung. But I pushed them away. I was busy with my own life. I was dealing with my own problems. It wasn't my fault that Marcus was so closed off. A few months later, Marcus called me. Actually called, which was rare. "Hey," he said. "I wanted to talk to you about something. I'm thinking about proposing to Amy." "Oh," I said. I was at work, distracted, only half paying attention. "That's great, Marcus. You don't sound very excited." "No, I am. I'm just at work. It's a busy day." There was a pause. "Right. Okay. Well, I was hoping we could get coffee this weekend. I wanted to talk to you about it. Get your thoughts." "This weekend? I can't. I have plans. Maybe next week?" "Sure," he said. His voice had gone flat. "Next week." But next week came and went, and I was too busy to follow up. Marcus didn't call again to reschedule. He proposed to Amy without ever having that conversation with me. I found out from Mom. I told myself I was happy for him. I sent a congratulatory text that he replied to with a simple thanks. But I felt hurt that he hadn't involved me more. Hurt that I'd had to hear about the proposal from our mother instead of from him. I didn't stop to think about how I'd made him feel. How I'd dismissed his attempt to connect with me. How I'd been too busy with my own life to make time for him. The wedding planning process was tense. Marcus and Amy wanted a small, intimate wedding. I had opinions about everything: the venue, the guest list, the menu. I thought I was being helpful, but I was really being controlling. Pushing my vision of what their wedding should be instead of supporting what they actually wanted. At one point, Amy gently told me they'd decided to handle most of the planning themselves. I felt slapped. "I'm just trying to help," I said to Marcus later. "I know," he said. "But it's our wedding, Sarah. We want to do it our way." "Fine," I said, my feelings hurt. "I won't help then." "That's not what he started, but I cut him off. "No, it's fine. You clearly don't want my input. I'll just show up as a guest." I was being petty and childish, but I couldn't seem to stop myself. I felt rejected, pushed aside. I didn't recognize that I'd been pushing Marcus aside for years. That this was just him setting a boundary I should have respected. The wedding was beautiful. Small and personal, exactly what they'd wanted. But I spent the whole day feeling like an outsider. Like I didn't really belong in my own brother's life anymore. A few months after the wedding, things came to a breaking point. Marcus texted me and asked if we could meet for coffee. Just the two of us. He said there was something he wanted to talk about. I agreed, though I was busy with work and annoyed at the inconvenience. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our apartments. Marcus looked nervous, his hands fidgeting with his cup. I was impatient, checking my phone, thinking about the work I needed to do that evening. "Thanks for meeting me," Marcus said. "Of course. What's up?" He took a deep breath. "I wanted to talk to you about our relationship. About how things have been between us." I felt defensive immediately. "What do you mean?" "Sarah, we barely talk anymore. And when we do, it feels like you're not really present. Like I'm an obligation on your checklist rather than your brother." "That's not fair," I said. "I'm busy. I have a demanding job. But I make time for family when I can." "Do you?" he asked quietly. "Because from where I'm sitting, you make time when it's convenient for you. When you need something. But when I reach out, when I try to connect, you're always too busy." "That's not true. I called you to talk about proposing to Amy. You were at work and couldn't be bothered to really listen. You said we'd talk the next week, but you never followed up. I had to hear about my own proposal from Mom because you didn't care enough to ask. I didn't know what to say. Because he was right. I had forgotten to follow up. I'd been too busy." "And the wedding," he continued. "You tried to take over. You pushed your opinions on us constantly. And when we told you we wanted to handle it ourselves, you got angry and pulled away." "I was just trying to help," I said, my voice rising. "I'm sorry for caring. But that's just it, Sarah. Were you helping? Or were you trying to control everything because you always think you know better? Because you still see me as your little brother who can't handle things on his own?" His words hit too close to home. "I don't." "You do," he interrupted. "You've always done it. Even when we were kids. You protected me, but you also spoke for me. Made decisions for me. Treated me like I was fragile or incapable. And now, as adults, you still do it. You judge my choices. You dismiss my life because it doesn't look like yours. You act like my art career isn't a real job. Like Amy isn't ambitious enough. Like I'm somehow failing at life because I'm not doing what you think I should be doing." "That's not fair," I said again, but my voice was shaking now. "I've always supported you." "Have you?" Marcus asked, and his eyes were wet. "Because it doesn't feel like support, Sarah. It feels like judgment. Like disappointment. Like I'm never quite good enough for you." "That's not true. I love you. You're my brother." "I know you love me," he said. "But love isn't enough if it comes with constant criticism and control. I've spent my whole life trying to live up to your expectations and failing. Trying to be the brother you want instead of the person I actually am. And I'm exhausted, Sarah. I can't do it anymore." I felt panic rising. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I need space. I need distance from our relationship because it's not healthy. Not for me. Maybe not for you either." "You're cutting me out? Over what? Because I have opinions?" Because I care about you? No, Marcus said, and his voice was firm now. Because you don't listen. You don't see me. You see the version of me that exists in your head, the little brother who needs your help and guidance. But that's not who I am. I'm a grown man with a career and a wife and a life that I'm happy with. And I need you to either see that and respect it, or I need you to let me go. Let you go? I repeated, anger flaring. You're being dramatic. So I'm not perfect. So sometimes I'm busy or opinionated. That doesn't mean you cut your sister out of your life. I'm not cutting you out, Marcus said quietly. I'm setting a boundary. I'm asking you to look at how you treat me and decide if you can change. Because I can't keep having this same relationship where I feel small and judged and never enough. I don't make you feel that way. You're being too sensitive. The moment I said it, I saw something change in his face. Something shut down. He stood up. Where are you going? I asked. I can't do this anymore, Sarah. I'm done. Marcus, wait. But he was already walking away. He walked out of that coffee shop, and I sat there alone, angry and confused and certain that he was overreacting. That he'd calm down and we'd talk in a few days and everything would be fine. I was wrong. Days turned into weeks. I texted Marcus a few times. Casual messages. Hey, how are you? Want to get dinner? No response. I called. The calls went to voicemail. I left messages that were never returned. I told myself he was being childish. That he'd get over it. That I'd done nothing wrong and he was the one who needed to apologize. But as weeks turned into months, something started to shift in me. I started actually thinking about what he'd said. Started looking at our relationship through his eyes instead of just my own. I thought about all the times I'd dismissed his feelings because I thought he was too sensitive. All the times I'd given advice he didn't ask for. All the times I'd made his life choices about me, about how they made me feel or what they said about our family, instead of about him. I thought about that day when I called him weird for being introverted. About the wedding toast I'd been embarrassed by instead of appreciating. About the proposal conversation I'd been too busy to have. About the 1,000 small ways I'd told him he wasn't enough. And I realized he was right. I hadn't seen him. Not really. I'd been so caught up in my own life, my own problems, my own perspective that I'd completely missed who my brother actually was. And worse, I'd made him feel like who he was wasn't acceptable. I started seeing a therapist. I told her about Marcus, about our fight, about the silence between us. And she asked me questions that were hard to answer. Why do you think you need to control situations? When did you stop seeing your brother as an equal and start seeing him as someone who needed your management? What are you afraid will happen if you let go and just accept people as they are? Through therapy, I started to understand. I'd spent so much of my life trying to control things because our childhood had felt so chaotic. Our parents fighting, their divorce, the instability. I'd tried to create order by managing my little brother, by being the responsible one, by always knowing best. But Marcus didn't need that anymore. Maybe he never had. Maybe my protection had actually been control all along. 6 months after our fight, I wrote Marcus a letter. A real letter, on paper, that I mailed to his apartment. I didn't expect a response, but I needed to say it anyway. I apologized. Really apologized. Not "I'm sorry you felt that way, but I'm sorry for what I did." I acknowledged every specific thing he'd mentioned and more. I told him he was right. That I had been judgmental and controlling and dismissive. That I hadn't seen him or listened to him or respected him as the adult he'd become. I told him I was in therapy, working on understanding why I acted the way I did. I told him I didn't expect him to forgive me or let me back into his life, but that I wanted him to know I finally understood what I'd done wrong. I ended the letter by telling him I loved him and I was proud of him and that his life was beautiful exactly as it was. I didn't hear back. But I didn't expect to. A year passed. Then another. I kept working on myself. I learned to recognize when I was being controlling. I practiced listening instead of advising. I worked on accepting people as they were instead of trying to change them. I dated someone for a while who reminded me of Marcus, quiet, artistic, sensitive. And I practiced all the things I'd learned. I listened. I supported without controlling. I accepted instead of judged. The relationship didn't last, but I was proud of how I showed up in it. Mom would give me updates about Marcus sometimes. He and Amy were doing well. His art career was thriving. They'd bought a house. They were happy. I was glad. And I tried not to feel sorry for myself about missing it all. 2 years and 3 months after that coffee shop conversation, I got a text from Marcus. My heart stopped when I saw his name on my phone. "Mom told me about your promotion. Congratulations. I know you worked hard for it." It was short. Formal. But it was communication. He'd reached out. I stared at the text for a long time before responding. "Thank you. That means a lot coming from you." A few minutes later, "Can we meet for coffee sometime?" "Yes," I typed immediately. "Whenever you want. I'll make time." We met the following week. Same coffee shop where we'd had our fight. I was so nervous I almost couldn't breathe. Marcus looked good. Older, but good. He seemed more confident than I remembered. More settled in himself. We sat down, and there was a long, awkward silence. "Thank you for meeting me," I finally said. "Thanks for coming." Another silence. "I got your letter," Marcus said. "About a year and a half ago." "You did?" "I wasn't sure if you'd read it." "I read it. Multiple times. I wasn't ready to respond. I needed time to process. To see if you actually meant it or if it was just words." "I meant it," I said. "Every word. I've been in therapy. Working on everything. And I'm so sorry, Marcus. For everything. For the way I treated you. For not seeing you. For making you feel like you weren't enough when the truth is, you were always more than enough. I was just too blind to see it." His eyes were wet. I needed to hear that. For years, I needed to hear that. I should have said it years ago. I should have seen it years ago. I'm so sorry it took me losing you to finally understand. We talked for 2 hours. Really talked. I asked him about his life, and I actually listened. I didn't offer advice or opinions. I just listened. He told me about his art, about his marriage, about the house he and Amy had bought. He showed me pictures of his latest gallery show. "I'm so proud of you," I said, and I meant it. You built an amazing life. Exactly the life you wanted. And I'm sorry I ever made you feel like it wasn't enough. I needed to build it without you, Marcus said. I needed to prove to myself that I could. That I didn't need your approval or validation. And I did. But Sarah, I missed you. I missed my sister. I missed you too, I said, crying now. So much. Every day. I'm not ready to go back to how things were, Marcus said carefully. I can't have that relationship again. It wasn't healthy for me. I understand. I don't want that relationship either. I want something different. Something better. Where I actually see you and listen to you and respect you as the incredible person you are. I'd like that, he said. But it's going to take time. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. I know. I'll take whatever you're willing to give. And I'll keep working on being better. Being the sister you deserve. We didn't fix everything that day. But we started. We agreed to have coffee once a month. To take it slow. To rebuild carefully. It's been a year since that first coffee meeting. Marcus and I are still rebuilding. It's not the same as it was when we were kids, that innocent, uncomplicated closeness. But in some ways, it's better. It's more honest. More equal. More real. I've met Amy properly now, spent time getting to know her without judgment. She's wonderful. Perfect for Marcus. I told her that, and I meant it. Marcus invited me to his studio. Showed me his work. I was blown away by his talent. I'd seen his art before, but I'd never really looked at it. Now I saw it. Really saw it. And I told him how incredible it was. I always knew you were talented, I said. But I don't think I ever told you that. I don't think I ever made you feel like I believed in you. No, he admitted. You didn't. But you're telling me now. That matters. We still have hard conversations sometimes. When I slip into old patterns of being controlling or dismissive, Marcus calls me on it. And I'm learning to listen. To apologize. To do better. Last month, Marcus and Amy told me they're expecting a baby. I cried when they told me. Happy tears. They asked if I'd be the baby's godmother. I said yes, and I promised I would be the best godmother. Supportive, not controlling. Present, but respectful of boundaries. I trust you, Marcus said. And those 3 words meant everything. I'm 39 now. Marcus is 37. We lost almost 3 years of our relationship. 3 years of silence because I couldn't see past my own perspective. 3 years I can never get back. But I learned something from those lost years. I learned that love without respect is just control. That caring without listening is just noise. That family isn't something you can take for granted or coast through on autopilot. Relationships take work. They take humility. They take the ability to see past your own hurt feelings and consider how your actions affect others. They take the willingness to change, to grow, to admit when you're wrong. I was wrong. For years, I was wrong. And it took my brother walking away for me to finally see it. If you're listening to this and you have a relationship that's broken, I want you to ask yourself something. Not whether the other person was wrong. But whether you were. Not whether they hurt you. But whether you hurt them. Because the truth is, most broken relationships aren't one-sided. Most of the time, both people contributed to the breakdown. And healing can't start until someone is willing to take responsibility for their part. I took responsibility. It was hard. It meant facing things about myself I didn't want to see. It meant admitting I'd been the controlling, judgmental, dismissive one. It meant letting go of my version of events and accepting Marcus's truth. But it was worth it. Because I have my brother back. Not completely. Not like before. But in a new way. A better way. A way built on mutual respect and honest communication and real listening. I'm Sarah. I'm 39 years old. I'm a sister who lost her brother because she couldn't see him for who he really was. Who spent 3 years in painful silence before finally learning to listen. Who is still learning, every day, to be better. Marcus may never fully trust me again. The relationship may never be what it once was. And I have to accept that. I have to accept that some damage can't be completely undone. That some trust, once broken, has scars even after it heals. But we're talking. We're rebuilding. We're trying. And that's more than I thought I'd ever have again when he walked out of that coffee shop 3 years ago. If you have a sibling you've lost, if there's silence between you, I want you to know it's not too late. It might feel too late. It might feel like too much time has passed or too much has been said. But it's not too late if you're both still alive. If there's still a chance to reach out. But reaching out means being willing to really listen. To accept responsibility. To see things from their perspective instead of just defending your own. It means being humble enough to admit you were wrong, even if they were wrong too. It's hard. It's so hard. But it's worth it. My brother stopped talking to me because I didn't know how to listen. Because I was so busy talking, advising, controlling, judging that I never just heard him. Never just saw him. But I'm listening now. Finally, I'm listening. And he's talking again. Finally, he's talking. We're not where we were. But we're somewhere. And somewhere is better than the silence. Somewhere is better than the emptiness. Somewhere is a gift I'll never take for granted again. If you have a brother, a sister, someone you've lost to silence and pride and old wounds, please consider reaching out. Please consider that maybe, just maybe, you could be wrong about some things. That maybe healing is possible if you're willing to do the work. I did the work. I'm still doing the work. And I got my brother back. Not all the way. Not perfectly. But enough. And enough, I've learned, is everything.